Hello. Today I would like to talk to you about the simple past. Let's look at this text. Last week I went to Montreal to visit my aunt. We ate at a restaurant, but I didn't like my food. It was too spicy. My aunt and I were happy to see each other. She asked me to visit her again next week. The verbs in red are examples of the simple past. Why do we use the simple past? It describes a completed action in the past at a specified time. Here are some examples. They met each other 3 months ago. Ago is my key word. I bought a new car last month. Last month indicates to me that the time is past, and it is also specified. She lived in Jasper from 2006 to 2009. Don't forget that the verb to be is an exception. We know in the present it has 3 different forms: I am, you are, he, she, or it is. But in the past it has 2 different forms: I was, you were, he, she, or it was, we were, they were. To make it negative, add the adverb not. I was not, you were not. And to make a question, invert the subject and the verb. For all other verbs, there are 2 forms of the simple past. Some verbs are what we call regular, where we add an ed, and some verbs are irregular, and you have to learn them. So, for regular verbs, we simply add ed to the base, and we use the same verb form for all subjects. I worked, she worked, they worked. We see here that for spelling, if your verb ends with a consonant plus the letter Y, we change the Y to I and add ed. For the pronunciation of ed, there are some basic rules. If your verb sound in the base form ends in P, K, F, S, X, sh, s, ch, then we pronounce the ed as a T sound. So, for example, this verb, kissed, we say kissed. If your verb sound ends like a vowel, or B, J, L, M, N, V, R, or Z, then the ed is pronounced like a D. Played, seemed. If your verb sound ends in a D or a T, then we pronounce an extra syllable of id. Wanted, needed. Let's repeat. Played, helped, worked, washed, continued, needed, thanked, seemed, robbed, picked, laughed, offered, dreamed, finished. How do we make negative sentences? This, of course, is for all verbs except the verb to be. To make a negative, we need an auxiliary, which is the past of do, so did, plus not. And your main verb goes back to the simple form. So it doesn't matter if your verb is regular or irregular. I saw him in the past becomes I didn't see him. So I conjugate my auxiliary. My verb, my main verb, goes back to the simple form. They ate lunch. They didn't eat lunch. She worked last night. She didn't work yesterday morning. For irregular verbs, you have to learn them. But the same rule applies for making negatives and questions. So, have, the past is had. But to make it negative, I follow the same rule. I didn't have. He didn't go. They didn't see. Where did he go? What did he become? Let's look. I didn't went. Is this correct? No. The correct answer is I didn't go. He didn't worked. Is this correct? No. He didn't work. They not studied. They didn't study. Cynthia had not. Cynthia didn't have time, for example. Chris wasn't there. Chris wasn't there. In this one, it's the verb to be, but the apostrophe is in the wrong place. So remember that to make a negative, your auxiliary is did plus not, and your verb has no ed. The exception, of course, is the verb to be. With questions, we follow the same rule, except the word order changes. For most direct information questions, our auxiliary is did, and your main verb goes back to the simple form. Of course, the exception is the verb to be, in which we invert the subject and the verb. So my sentence, I saw him, I'm going to change the order. Question word, auxiliary, subject, verb. Where did you see him? I conjugate my auxiliary. My main verb goes back to the simple form. They ate lunch. What did they eat for lunch? She worked last night. When did she work? So, to learn and remember how to use the simple past, look for a link. Making negatives and questions is difficult, but you can do it. And remember that we use the simple past to talk about completed actions at specified times in the past. Thank you for listening.